I have become the manager of Newcastle United, but I'm not in charge of any transfers at this club.
Sorry, what?
This guy is. He is the Newcastle Director of Football. And I have set all the transfer responsibility to Dan Ashworth, the ins, the outs, and the contracts.
You're having a laugh!
And I'm giving him, and I guess myself, just 5 seasons to see if I can win the Premier League and Champions League with Newcastle United.
I'm not feeling the pressure, no. You cannot put pressure on me. No chance.
It's not even July and he's already making offers for Thomas Souček at West Ham. Centre midfield is definitely a position we are weak in, and Souček I think is brilliant. I really like this director of football already.
That's my guy! That's my guy!
But West Ham are wanting 46 million and our budget is only 56. Well, welcome to the new director of football series. If you are new to the channel, we do lots of challenges just like this one. And my dear old dad sent me a challenge to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So please consider subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. My scouts highly recommend Bastoni as a top target. No good telling me that though, lads. A huge £46 million plus Ryan Fraser bid has been accepted though, and Dan Ashworth is offering 80,000 grand a week contract to Thomas Souček. One thing I am in charge of is the tactic, and I've built a 4-4-2 shape that I think Souček will be perfect for in that centre midfield role alongside Bruno Guimaraes.
Cheers, Jeff.
Dunno. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
More potential transfers with Wonderkid Facundo Farias from Argentina. A decent little squad player with good potential, but not exactly a position we are running right now in that number 10 role. And the reason I went with a 4-4-2 is because there's also Dan Ashworth's preferred formation, so I thought it would match up with his transfers. But anyway, our first sign-in, Thomas Souček, is signed, and long-term viewers of the channel will remember how much I love this guy in Football Manager because of his player traits, meaning I can get him to score so many goals. So I'm going to attempt it again with a slight change to the tactic and making his role as centre midfield on attack just to try it out and see how it does. Farias also joins the club for just £3 million up front. We've still got £27 million in the budget somehow. Financial fair play. Dan also accepted a loan offer for Sean Longstaff from Brighton, but Sean rejected the offer.
Damn it, Carl!
Isak is getting prepared for the season, scoring 5 goals in a final pre-season friendly, with our first game of the season being against Bournemouth. Hilariously, Isak did not score on this day, but he did get involved in the goals when he assisted the second, which was excellently executed by Matt Targett from left back. Souček, the brand new signing, also assisted on his debut for Chris Wood, and we finished the game 4-0 winners when Bruno Guimaraes got in the final tap-in. A position I didn't expect us to go for is the goalkeeper slot. We've made an offer for Jan Sommer, and I'm curious as I think Nick Pope is better, but when comparing, Jan does have better goalkeeping attributes. I just don't think he's so much better that we really justify a £16 million move at the age of 33. I actually think Dan's drunk. Jan Sommer is a Newcastle player, so Dan offers £30 million for Emiliano Martinez, and we only have £14 million left.
I declare bankruptcy!
I think whatever Dan was drinking ended up in the water bowls at half-time, because against Everton we looked comfortable when St. Maximin scored before half-time. But we were lacklustre to say the least in the second half, and it cost us 2 points. We then played Leeds at home in the league and we won 4-2. Then we lost to them in the following game in the Cup. But a Souček winner against Brentford and a controlling performance against Fulham seen out the rest of the games in the transfer window. Man City have a plus 16 goal difference after just 5 games, but don't let that hide us in third place with plus 11. The drama of the transfer window didn't stop there, as Sean Longstaff finally left on loan to Brighton. And we paid £4 million for 6'4" centre-back Willy Cambuala, who we'll now call Big Willy.
Ha! Giggity.
Big Willy jumps into the youth team for now, so it's just Souček and Jan Sommer. Dan Ashworth decided to bring in for the first team, of course, Farias as a squad player. No transfers out. Although Brighton's contract states that they will permanently be signing Sean Longstaff for £4.7 million at the end of the season. September, we are either amazing or we are dreadful. It started off really well when St. Maximin Rabona cross was pushed out into the path of Isak to score. But then the game flipped on its head when in the 92nd minute, Ben Johnson equalised off the rebound. In the 95th, we gave all the points away when Antonio scored. Then we went and smashed Man United 7-0 in the Premier League. In October, not even a Jamie Vardy hat-trick could take 3 points away from us. And when Chelsea visited St James's Park, they had the audacity to take the lead through Sterling. Luckily, we kept ourselves in the game and got an equaliser through Almiron, who then got himself sent off in the next match in a loss to Spurs. An example of Souček's movement from the centre midfield spot in the 3-1 win against Brighton here. And with the World Cup approaching, we have been staying strong going into the break. Second place in the league, only 4 points behind Man City and 4 points ahead of Man United, who again, we beat 7-0. We took on Aston Villa in one of the 2 games in November, and it was the day for Callum Wilson. He scored 3 goals in a 4-0 win and was absolutely quality, so clinical, and showing why Football Manager players over the years absolutely love Mr. Wilson. Chris Wood picked up the 4th in a fantastic win. Our last game before the break was a tight 2-2 draw against Arsenal. The World Cup final was won by France with Mbappe's second and extra time winner against the Dutch. And our first game back was Manchester City. And of course, they were on fire before the World Cup, with Erling Haaland enjoying his rest and decided to score not 1 but 2 goals against us. But don't panic, because 3 of our players also scored 2 goals and we absolutely smashed them 6-2. They were definitely missing Frankie Amakortu. If you know, you know. Please check out my best ever video. Southampton are bottom of the league, by the way, with 7 points. And why am I mentioning this? Because we followed our win against top of the league Man City with a draw against Southampton. January arrives and Dan is back at it, offering out bids for Angel Correa, which was rejected. Looks like the owners are giving him some more spending money. Although putting a £35 million bid in for Douglas Santos is not what I expected. January also brought a loss to Liverpool in the league twice. Another fullback sign as we pick up Timothy Castagna on loan with a permanent buy for £19 million. Good signing, to be fair. And Adrian Rabiot, who, subject to a work permit, which he should get, joins on a free transfer when his contract runs out at the end of June. In February, we managed to beat bottom of the league Southampton 3-1. We also faced Spurs in what started off as a very tight affair when, after Isak bagged the opener, Heung-min Son managed to hide his shot from the goalkeeper to equalise. But Isak nodded a back post cross down to Bruno Guimaraes, who put us back into the lead, and just after half-time, he then went and scored a third himself, and Callum Wilson put the game to bed, making it 4-1. Unfortunately, we couldn't replicate our huge victory against United at Old Trafford. 2 more wins against Southampton and Everton, though, with a 5th round tie against Forest next. We are still holding our own in the Premier League, though, and 2nd spot, but from 2nd to 5th, it's very tight, and who will miss out? FA Cup time, and an unbelievable pass by Souček found Callum Wilson for the first goal. Forest looked like they wasted their attack, but they managed to keep piling on the pressure and equalise from it eventually. But Souček was the man today. Not only did he get the first assist, but he scored the winner as well. In the quarterfinal, we faced Brighton, with Wilson picking up 1 more goal, and yet again, Thomas Souček scoring 2. He now has 15 goals in 22 appearances in the league and 20 goals across all competitions. In the league, we couldn't beat Brighton and only picked up 4 points from 6, with Arsenal and City up next. But we are still in 2nd with a game in hand, so shall we really push for this Champions League this season?
Go on, man.
Well prepared to be shocked, because we just smashed 3rd place Arsenal 6-0. And I don't know what is happening to us in these big games, because it doesn't even stop there. We then went to the Etihad to Manchester City, who are absolute steamrolling teams this year, against Erling Haaland, who has nearly 40 goals in about 28 games. And we went there and we won the game 7-0. And they played their first 11, and it wasn't even that Jan Sommer was having the best game of his life. They had 1 shot on target. They just didn't show up. We were simply amazing. I don't know what to tell you. Because we followed that with a loss to Villa.
I can't believe it!
West Ham also knocked us out of the FA Cup in extra time of the semi-final.
Oh, God!
And with a couple of wins to Forest and Palace but a loss to Chelsea, we have a fairly easy run towards the end of the season, pushing for that top 4 spot. And in May, we went on a tear, beating Bournemouth 3-0. Defeated Brentford at home 1-0 with a beautiful team goal. Another 1-0 win against Leeds, where Bruno was also sent off. And then we even embarrassed the FA Cup finalist West Ham 5-0 in our final home game this season. And we lose our last game against Fulham at Craven Cottage. But yes, we completely outperformed all expectations with this team, finishing only 4 points behind champions Manchester City, and somehow have a better goal difference without having a top scorer in the top 3 or our goalkeeper in the clean sheets of the player stats, with Haaland there just casually sitting on 47 goals in 38 games. Isak scored 30 goals this season with 11 assists in 41 matches, a goal contribution per game. Absolutely fantastic, and Thomas Souček even finished in second place on goals, even ahead of Callum Wilson from centre midfield. But make sure you tune into the next episode, because Dan, our director of football, has £142 million to spend, so you don't want to miss out who he brings in next. The first season threw up a few surprises, to say the least, in a series where the director of football is to make all of the transfers ins and outs. It was the performance on the pitch that put us finishing in second place in the Premier League.
Let's go, that's class!
And new signing Thomas Souček scoring 25 goals from centre midfield. Welcome to the Director of Football Challenge. We have 5 seasons to win a Premier League and a Champions League with Newcastle United. And the board have given our Director of Football £140 million to spend. We also know we're expecting the arrival of Adrien Rabiot from Juventus as a free transfer. And our Director of Football wasted no time putting in a huge offer for Nice centre-back Todibo. He is fantastic, his physical skills are amazing, he's lightning quick and strong. His technical attributes are impressive too, even down to the dribbling and first touch. At the same time, Wolves are after our Big Willie. Don't worry though, our Director of Football has rejected it. A month later, and Todibo is our player, but he remains the only transfer made so far. We have £90 million left to do stuff with, but Dan Ashworth is kind of twiddling his thumbs and he's not even putting in bids. Come on, man! And Todibo remained our only signing going into the first match against Arsenal. And it was a cracking game too, with all the goals happening in the second half, starting with Almiron's finish. Arsenal's new signing Benassa equalised on the 69th minute, but when Rabiot came off the bench, I thought he was going all the way before he was dispossessed, and Souček thought he'd scored the winner. But unfortunately, Fabio Vieira smashed a penalty down the middle in the 93rd minute to end the game 2-2. We faced Leicester straight after in the league, and it was a lot more comfortable. Souček's header put us ahead in 15 minutes, and it was Isak who scored the second right on half-time. Callum Wilson appeared from nowhere at the back post to secure the win. A good 3 points. Unfortunately, that was followed up with a loss against Chelsea and a draw to Wolves, conceding in the 88th minute. Deadline day came, and the only thing that occurred was Big Willie couldn't move because of a work permit. He wasn't being used enough. I know the feeling, mate. Considering the money we had to spend, it meant for a very bland summer window. The Champions League draw, and we were in pot 4 and drawn into Group D alongside Bayern, Ajax and Zagreb. Looking at it, Group C would have been probably the only more difficult option, possibly with a Group E in consideration with PSG and Lazio. Before that though, in the league, we take on West Ham at the London Stadium, and Wilson found Isak on the 13th minute. West Ham managed to drag themselves back into the game through exploiting our right hand side where Ben Rama scored, but that same right hand side was used to slip Isak down the flank, and his wonderful cross was met by Wilson's header. Great goal. And the second half only had one goal, and that was when Rabiot found the run of Bruno, who playing from the left slotted it in to make it 3-1. We followed that with a win against Brentford and a loss to Brighton. But our only game in the Champions League in September was against Bayern Munich, and what a game it was. Castagna put us in the lead before Mane was given too much space and leveled things up for the Munich side. However, in the second half, it was the home side who started better, and Isak put us back into the lead, followed by his mate up front, Callum Wilson, who put us 3-1 ahead against the German Giants. Late into the game though, Thomas Muller ran through and dinked in a second, but it was too late, and we take 3 points and a 3-2 win.
Get in!
Things got even better in October when we first beat Zagreb away 4-0, and then put on a masterclass against Ajax. We hounded them all game, and although Isak scored a hat-trick, my man of the match goes to Kieran Trippier, who got 1 assist and 2 goals from direct free kicks in a 6-0 win. He scored another direct free kick in the following match against Manchester United in the league as well, which by the way was another shocking result as we beat them 4-0.
I like it.
It was all wins in October as well, as that seen us sneak into the top 4 with a game in hand, but some way off Liverpool at top spot and top of our Champions League group, with Bayern losing to Ajax as well. Our trip to Amsterdam wasn't as enjoyable, however, and we could only break Zagreb down at home through a corner. That being said, in the league we pulled off 2 4-0 wins against Fulham and Swansea, as well as dropping 2 points against Liverpool in the 92nd minute when Fabian Schär went wandering at 1-0 up and gifted a pass to Harvey Elliott, who did well to equalise. Yeah, it's not your best work, Fabian. Idiot. We played 9 games in December. In the league, we only lost once to Manchester City, although it was a battering. We also did not put up the best of fights against Bayern Munich, although Serge Gnabry did turn into Ronaldinho, which we couldn't really do much about. First he curled in the opener. We went 2-0 down after 10 minutes, but I still had hope when Souček pulled one back with a quarter of an hour gone, and we continued to push at 2-1 down until the 78th minute, when Serge Gnabry chipped the goalkeeper with an outrageous finish, and it doesn't stop there because he also played an inch-perfect pass for the 4th as well. But December also included a fantastic win in the quarter-final of the EFL Cup against Man United, with goals from Joelinton and Callum Wilson. Anthony did get on the score sheet as well, but we had enough to get through the semi-final in what could be our best hope for a trophy this season. Draws to Leeds and Crystal Palace in this incredibly stacked month could have been a lot worse. Amazingly, we finished 2nd place in our Champions League group behind Ajax, knocking out Bayern Munich. And we faced Barcelona across 2 legs in the round of 16, who Newcastle famously did beat 3-2 in 1997. January came around and the first Ballon d'Or win for Erling Haaland. And our director of football started making transfers again, signing Manuel Ugarte from Sporting for £29 million. Unfortunately, he arrived 2 days late from saving us getting destroyed 4-0 by Man United. He started, however, in the semi-final of the EFL Cup against Liverpool, where his pass to Souček allowed him to assist Isak for the opener. Trippier whipped in a free kick and Dan Burn then put us 2-0 ahead. And surprisingly, we beat top of the Premier League 3-0 in the first leg when Isak scored his second first half goal, which allowed us to book our place at Wembley when the second leg finished 3-2 to Liverpool, knocking them out 5-3 on aggregate. And our director of football celebrated this win with a new signing, 23-year-old Rodri from Betis, a very talented Spanish attacking midfielder who we picked up for £44 million. He's been having a great season so far with 7 goals and 4 assists, and I'm hoping he can do the same here in England. Boy, do we need him too, because things have gone very sour, losing to both Everton and Wolves. More signings came through the door with another left back in Gutierrez for £12 million. Another young Spaniard who is fantastic to be fair and slots straight into the starting lineup. Just before deadline day, our director of football is trying to obtain a young Serbian centre-back. He agrees to sign just before the match we have on deadline day against Leicester, a must-win for just £7.25 million. I wouldn't consider him elite level, but he is probably better than the centre-backs we still have. Beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So we switched things around for the Leicester game, and I attempt to try a new shape using Rodri as a shallow striker and packing out that midfield to stop us from conceding too many goals.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Although we played some liquid football like this first goal of the game by Isak, it didn't seem to click right and we conceded 2 goals in the second half and had to rescue a point late through a penalty by Wilson. Nobody played very well at all. And we dropped out the top 4 and really 4 behind, 7 points adrift and a game extra played. Some good signings though through the January transfer window, and a huge new sponsorship deal too. Man City gave us another loss going into February, but after 6 winless matches, our next opponent was once again Man United, this time in the FA Cup, and we finally pick up another win. It came when Bruno Guimaraes scored 2 goals in 23 minutes, followed by Rashford picking up a goal to hopefully pull the Manchester side back into the match, but we squashed that with Rabiot scoring just 5 minutes later, knocking them out of the FA Cup. And it gave us a spark, just what we needed as we go to the Emirates and pick up a 1-0 win, and that followed with another win against Brighton. But then we ran into Barcelona, who were also in form and scored 2 goals in 2 minutes through Ansu Fati and Dembele. But we got a lifeline, I guess, when Bruno Guimaraes was played through and his cross was turned goalwards by Frankie de Jong. And somehow we make the second leg to come even more interesting when Castagna equalised with 10 minutes to go. But it's Carabao Cup final time versus Leeds. Can we win our first trophy?
Here we go.
And in a game that had just 1 goal, it was new signing Rodri who found the back of the net, helping the Toon Army lift their first trophy in this new Saudi era. But let's be fair, it's only the League Cup.
How dare you?
We actually faced Leeds 2 games later as well, and Callum Wilson scored his 4th and the winner in the 96th minute of the match. Incredible. Unfortunately, our run in the Champions League came to an end though of a 1-0 loss to Barcelona in the second leg. And it was 2 eliminations from 2 games when West Ham scored 2 goals in the 88th and 91st minute to knock us out of the FA Cup in the quarter-final stage. So with 7 games left, it's just the league we need to focus on, and that 5-point gap away from Arsenal in the top 4. And that quest started off great with a 5-0 win against Fulham. Then against Watford, wing play in our 4-4-2 decimated them, and when the Spanish combination of Gutierrez and Rodri scored the first goal, and then from the right-hand side, Rodri's run for the cutback to Isak. It was 3 wins from 3 against Swansea. Surely the top 4 is going to be ours, right? Well, a loss against Liverpool won't help.
Damn it, Carl!
And with 3 games left, we still trail 5 points behind, and we've even played a game more. It does not look good. We did win our last 3 games of the Premier League, but a 6th place finish is as high as we could get. So I have one question to ask you all. Do we scrap the 4-4-2 tactic formation? And if so, what do you think we should go for? Because we have so many centre midfielders, and we have 231 million that could be spent in the summer. But remember, it's not down to us who we sign. And a little spoiler for the next episode, we signed another centre midfielder. In the second season, we won the Carabao Cup.
Get in!
But we finished down in 6th place.
You're joking.
A lot of players are leaving on free transfers, but the director of football has £231 million to spend, which of course I have no say on, thanks to him being in control of all transfers and contracts. And he did not mess around bringing in Gonzalo Inacio, a fantastic young centre-back, for a bargain price of just £30 million from Sporting. But it doesn't stop there. A £6 million bid for Asp Jensen. He's a Danish midfielder only aged 18, definitely one for the future from Bayern Munich. And then another £68 million for centre midfielder Erkan Kirku of Feyenoord. I mean, he's great and all, but my word, that's expensive for a position we aren't really struggling with. But that's the kind of thing I always find with this series, the Director of Football Challenge. The Director of Football will always stock up in one position. But it didn't take long before we broke the transfer record at the club, bringing in the midfielder for 68 million. We also say our goodbyes to our beloved Big Willie. Some people never have their own Big Willie, so we should just be grateful. He left a hole in our hearts that hopefully this £57 million transfer could fill. Santiago Jimenez, who moved to Leicester last season, is a quality goalscorer and is also wanted by Man United. After his £30 million move on deadline day last year, he scored 15 goals in 25 games in the Premier League. But our first game of the season is here already. I'll talk about the tactic in a bit because I left it on whether we should change, and I tried loads of different tactics, so we'll get to that. For now, we're rocking a formation we used in Season 2 January, and we took the lead through Souček, but Man United caught us on the counter in the 84th minute and then ripped us open for Rashford to score. However, in the 93rd minute, Souček scored another header from a corner. Apparently, they patched that corner routine. We couldn't score at all against Middlesbrough and lost 2-0. We got the Santiago Jimenez deal completed just in time for the next match, though, against Arsenal, where we tried a new narrow diamond formation, and it did not start well, although our defending was abysmal in this match, and Arsenal took the lead. They made it 2 from the penalty spot, but something positive as Jimenez was played through. He squared it across to Isak, who scored. But once again, our terrible defending let us down, and Arsenal won the game 3-1. So, what did my director of football do? He signed another striker.
Sorry, what?
Now, don't get me wrong, £33 million for Gonzalo Ramos is a bargain, by the way. This guy is awesome, but we now have 4 really good strikers to choose from. Wolves are livid that we keep signing these Portuguese players as well. We also sold Douglas Santos, who has become redundant since Gutierrez was brought in January. He went for £14.25 million, taking our outs total to £31.5 million. But it's on the ins, it's a little higher, £165 million in 2 months. Who do we think we are? Chelsea? Am I right? No? Okay. Anyway, we are rocking the narrow diamond tactic for a little while longer, mainly because it fits the 52 centre midfielders we now have. Cheers, Dan. Idiot! We play Man City next and lost 4-3 in a very entertaining game. Europa League fixtures are in, and I fancy our chances of a top 8 qualification. And in our first game of the competition, Gonzalo Ramos scored almost from kickoff in a 5-0 win. Ramos then set up the other new striker we brought in this season, Jimenez, against Crystal Palace in a 2-0 win back in the Premier League. Wilfried Zaha Villa received a straight red card too in this match, and Rodri got the second goal in injury time second half. The other results in this month include wins against Villa and Mansfield, but a loss to Wolves, which means we've started the season very mediocre, winning and losing 4 games from 8. So I changed the tactic and I went 3 at the back. Fast forward a couple of months and Ramos is banging in hat-tricks against Leeds. We also scored 4 past Southampton and another 4 goals away to Everton.
I like it.
But we also lost to Chelsea and Liverpool at home.
I'm not feeling the pressure now. You cannot put pressure on me. No chance.
But with 9 games in total in December, it didn't stop us from getting 6 wins and 1 draw in the Premier League. And that then shoots us back up the league, joint on points with City in 4th place. Speaking of Man City, they knocked us out of the Carabao Cup at the quarter-final stage. And it was a perfect performance in the Europa League so far. 6 wins from 6 and no goals conceded, including a fantastic 3-0 win against the kings of this competition, Sevilla. The first 2 goals coming from Santiago Jimenez, but both assisted by his Swedish strike partner Isak, whose fantastic pressing on the Sevilla defence led to him getting his own goal and man of the match. And the wins and clean sheets continued with a 6-0 against Qarabağ and a 96th minute 1-0 winner away to Roma. No surprises that we finished top of the league phase of Europa League with a 34+ goal difference. The new year in the Premier League started by dropping 2 points when Arsenal scored from a corner in the 91st minute. It was also a late goal from the spot against Chelsea that unfortunately knocked us out of the 3rd round of the FA Cup, taking the 3-2 defeat. Window is open again though, and the director of football is making some offers. Dan Ulic is a great Austrian defender who mainly sits at centre-back but can cover many different positions. Again, you can't argue with a £20 million price tag. And he's in the door, ready for some game time. We also accepted a loan-to-buy bid for St. Maximin, but he's refusing to leave.
Cheers, Jeff.
With the transfer window now closed, a trip to Spurs proved difficult for us and we take another loss. But in a short month with only 3 games, we had back-to-back 3-2 wins. And a round of 16 draw for Europa League pits us against Braga of Portugal. We continued our incredible performance in the competition, winning the first leg away from home 3-0 with goals from Isak, Jimenez and Todibo from a corner. And that gave us a relaxed home leg in which we still put them to the sword in a 4-0 win. It might have played a part in our league form though, as during March we went from winning 7-0 before the Europa League tie to drawing both after, with Chelsea and Liverpool next. We know it's going to be very tough. But we still sit in 3rd place thankfully, and it's French side Nice in the quarter-finals of the Europa League. Again, the first leg was away from home, but we still struck first when Isak scored in the 2nd minute. However, our run of not conceding a goal finally came to an end when Diop put the ball away. Thankfully, it didn't affect the result too much because we scored right before half-time, and Isak got his 2nd soon after that, and then put away his 3rd, our 4th, in a 4-1 first leg win. The 2nd leg, we threw the clean sheet right out the window. Again, it didn't really affect the result. We were already 3 goals up, and before they even scored, we bagged another 2 from Isak and Jimenez, but I was very disappointed we conceded 3 goals at home after being so solid in the competition for so long. We win on the night 5-3, 9-4 on aggregate. It was not all sunshine and rainbows in the Premier League, however.
My eyes are bleached.
But a semi-final against Belgian side Antwerp, a tie that you'd like to think we shouldn't really struggle to win. Gonzalo Inacio was brought in for his defensive prowess. Why am I mentioning this, you ask? Well, because in the first leg against Antwerp, he scored 3 goals. And he picked up an incredible assist for the only goal that wasn't scored by a defender in this game for Gonzalo Ramos. Newcastle won 6-0 in this home leg with 5 goals being scored by defenders. Inacio with 3, ending with a calm penalty, Castagna with a beautiful goal to be fair, and Todibo with the other. I guess we are going to the final then. Ah yes, can definitely confirm that is happening. And we will be facing Italian side Atalanta in the final as they defeated Aston Villa 2-1 across both legs. Back to the league, and probably the most exciting match we have had all year happened at Ellen Road, where we scored within 3 minutes. Robin Koch then equalised for Leeds just 20 minutes gone, but you know the old saying that you're most vulnerable right after you scored, and we put ourselves back in front just a minute later. A tight game all the way through until the end, as Leeds then found a way to equalise for the 2nd time through Jack Harrison right before injury time in the 2nd half. But instead of being gutted for dropping 2 points, we went and scored a 92nd minute winner from Kirku, and then decided to get a 4th in the 96th minute as well. Hilariously, the team that didn't make the Europa League final, Villa, then put 3 goals past us in the first half, destroying us and making our solid as cement defence look like we were crumbling. And not really the time of the season reason to be doing that when you're pushing for top 4 and have a cup final coming up.
All the bloody resistance of a poppadom catching a bowling ball.
Another 4 goals conceded in the first half against West Ham. What has happened to us?
I just want it to stop.
We then played a kind of rotated Manchester City side in the last game of the season and opened the scoring from a goal of the season contender by Thomas Souček. Trippier then smashed in a free kick, and all of a sudden we were back to playing incredible football and our confidence was back. They did score 2 goals on the night, but by half-time we kind of put the game to bed with some fantastic goals and playing like a team full of confidence heading into a cup final. Europa League final time now, and not the best of starts for Newcastle when Atalanta's attack down our right-hand side resulted in a cross deflecting up in the path of Malinowski to fire home. Thankfully, the Newcastle fans weren't made to worry too long before the equaliser came through shadow striker Kirku. He was having a whale of a time in the final as he also picked up the second goal for Newcastle, putting us 2-1 ahead. But on the stroke of half-time, we got caught again, and it was the same player who gave them the initial lead who then equalised. 2-2, game on. In the second half though, would you believe it, Kirku was there again to make it 3-2. He then took a penalty and scored his 4th of the game, 4-2 in the 96th minute. And just to guarantee the honour of us winning the Europa League, Santiago Jimenez scored a 5th to make it 5-2 on the night. And Newcastle are your Europa League champions. Good job we won it too, really, because we finished in 5th place in the league, so it kept my job. In Season 4, our Director of Football has another £200 million to spend. But I must admit, I am tempted to fire Dan Ashworth and bring in a different Director of Football. What are your thoughts? Shall I bid him off and try somebody new for the last 2 seasons? Let me know down in the comments section and find out in the next episode. We've just won the Europa League, but we are some way off the league title, finishing in 5th place. And after spending hundreds of millions, I decided to sack Director of Football Dan Ashworth. And once Dan Ashworth had gone, we approached a new Director of Football, Italian Cristiano Guintoli, the former Director of Football from Napoli, who was responsible for bringing in this guy and this guy. But before he came in, our assistant manager made a move for Antonio Costa from Benfica. Obviously a quality player, so I don't mind too much, but geez, calm down. We've also released some first-team players such as Callum Wilson and Joe Linton.
Sorry, what?
Again, I have no say in whose contract is renewed or not. Antonio Silva took his time but rejected us, joining Liverpool instead.
How dare you?
But Cristiano didn't reject us, and his first bit of business was selling Alan St-Maximin to Leicester for £21.5 million, a player we simply didn't use because of the formation we played. I am, however, a little worried, because he's accepted a bid for Alexander Isak, and with that, the start of the season fast approaching, our main striker is gone. I say main striker, he hasn't exactly been scoring that many goals for us recently.
We cannot replace him. We cannot.
And with that money, he's put a bid in for an Italian centre-back, Vitti. He's recently moved to Nice, but has developed really nicely into a cracking young centre-back. But before we complete that, we already have to face Liverpool in the UEFA SUPERCUT. And in what was a crazy game of football, Liverpool won the match 4-3 with an Enzo Fernandez 92nd minute winner. Because of work permits, we still had no players at our first league match against Wolves, where Gonzalo Ramos used his pace to beat the keeper to the ball and win the game for us with the only goal. Vitti signed in time for the Man City game, but it was his centre-back partner who scored the opener. But unfortunately, Man City abused and exploited near-post corners and they equalised. It's unlike them to cheat though, right? But with bad results against Arsenal and Leeds, I'm thinking a tactic change. Another new signing coming into Tyneside as we welcome German goalkeeper Dennis Seaman. At 19, he's probably the best young goalkeeper on the game and already better than Jan Sommer. And during the transfer deadline day, another bid was made for attacking midfielder Sudakov. £63 million is a hefty fee for a player who doesn't exactly improve our first team, but he will still become useful nonetheless. And that's because we have switched to a 4-3-1-2 using 3 defensive midfielders, and 2 of them are one of my favourite roles this year, the Segundo Volante on attack. Our Champions League fixtures have seen us play both Spanish giants in the first 2 matches coming up in September. Speaking of which, September started really great when Sudakov scored 14 minutes into his debut. West Ham, however, also used the near post corner exploits the ruddy scoundrels, but they couldn't stop the unbelievable strike of Rodri or Newcastle taking all 3 points for that matter. And with 2 more league wins and a win against Burnley in the Cup, things were looking good domestically. But in Europe, however, things were very different when we travelled to Madrid and Tchouaméni smashed in a rocket. We couldn't find our way back into the game and Osimhen made it 2 in injury time. Similar story when Barcelona visited us, as Lewandowski opened the scoring just 6 minutes in. Just before halftime, 2 crucial moments changed the game as Ansu Fati got a lucky deflected goal, and then even though he's already on a yellow, Manuel Ugarte did a 2-foot lunge and received a straight red card, the silly goose. Santiago Jimenez did his best to salvage something for us when he scored a wonderful chip, but we couldn't muster another. It affected our league form as Everton battered us 4-0, and Jimenez rescued a point against Spurs in the last minute after missing the original penalty. We did pick up the win against Leicester though through 5 different goal scorers, but we got beat in the Carabao Cup 3-0 by Brentford. Luckily, we did defeat Hertha 1-0 in our next Champions League match, again through Jimenez. The 24-year-old Mexican has really been clutch for us recently. He also scored the opener in the league match against Huddersfield when Ramos found him. Quite an impressive performance in this one, with once again scoring 5 goals through 5 different goal scorers. Unfortunately, we also conceded a goal, but I will definitely take a solid 5-1 win after some dodgy performances as of late. And with more back-to-back wins against Southampton and Watford, we visited Anfield where Rodri scored the opening goal after 19 minutes. Unfortunately, we are our own worst enemy, and with terrible defending, Darwin Núñez seized the opportunity to score an equaliser. But they almost took all 3 points, but Dennis Seaman made an incredible penalty save from Salah. November in the Champions League was awful, and we couldn't even score a goal in both games against 10 men. Our only loss in December came at the hands of Chelsea. 1 loss, 7 wins. Against Man United, I thought we were in for a tough day when Rashford opened us up for Sancho's tap-in just 3 minutes into the game. But summer signing Sudakov had a blinder of a day as he originally equalised just 10 minutes later. But then after another attack, he found himself giving us a lead just after the hour mark. And it was the Spaniard Rodri who scored the 3rd goal of the day for us in a great win at St James's Park. Speaking of Rodri, he also won Man of the Match in our December Champions League match against Villarreal. He showed up big time in a 5-1 win with 2 goals and a fantastic performance. Overall, December was incredible for us, with wins against a lot of the sides we tend to drop silly points to. And that propels us into 2nd place, albeit playing a game more than the teams either side of us. In the Champions League though, we've got a job on our hands to stay in the competition. Erling Haaland just won his 3rd Ballon d'Or, and we are also going into the January window losing our 2 backup goalkeepers and Matt Target. But the director of football has his replacement in Van der Voort. £20 million for a player who's arguably just as good if not better than Dennis Seaman. He wasn't the biggest signing of January though, because we signed Florian Wirtz. Now I don't know why we picked up another player in the number 10 spot, but he is still an elite player and only 22 years old, costing £64 million from Leverkusen. And he made an immediate impact in the FA Cup, scoring 2 goals in a 9-1 win against Crawley. Sudakov was the best player on the pitch, however, scoring 4 goals and getting 2 assists. Our squad rotation is now amazing, and it allows us to play fresh players after midweek games to secure the big league wins, like this 2-0 result at home to Spurs.
Oh, you're joking.
In the Champions League, our last 2 games including a 7-0 win against Sparta Prague and unfortunately a tie against Zagreb, playing in the snow where Jimenez gave us the early lead. They did, however, capitalise from the spot, and we were up against it when Bruno Guimaraes chopped down their midfielder, picking up another straight red card. Those 4 points being we had to use the elimination playoff to get through to the round of 16, and we faced Monaco. We had 2 games against Manchester City in February, and in the league match we took a 2-0 loss. But at an incredible 5th round FA Cup tie, we take the lead when Florian Wirtz slipped through Ugarte. However, Bellingham also has a cracking pass on him, and he found Erling Haaland to equalise. In the second half, we actually played like Guardiola's Man City side would play like, as we passed our way through and Sudakov put us back into the lead. But it didn't last long because David Castell made it 2-2. In the 93rd minute though, Ramos chased a long ball over the top and slipped it into the net to put us through to the quarterfinals. Our first leg against Monaco at home ended 0-0. Dull. In the second leg, however, we played really well and made it 1-0 through Jimenez. It was 2-0 not so long after when Bruno Guimaraes met a cutback near the penalty spot. And it was 3-0 and game over by half-time when Dan Ulic scored from an outswinging corner. And we faced the holders Liverpool in the next round.
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
The result against Man City and this draw to Brighton has seen us lose legs in the league, dropping down into 3rd place behind both North London clubs. March was not a good month for Newcastle United as we first lost at Old Trafford from a direct kick by Eriksson and a penalty kick by Bruno Fernandes, only getting a consolation through Sudakov. And then after a 0-0 draw to Liverpool where we had 20 shots on goal, we lose 6-0 in the second leg from their 20 shots. And even with another win in the league, we are still some way off Arsenal. All smiles in the FA Cup though, as we knocked out Leicester at the King Power Stadium 2-1 in the quarterfinals with goals from Trippier and Gonzalo Ramos. And we meet Man United once again in the semi-finals. This is not an April Fool's, we just beat Chelsea on April 1st 3-0. Santiago, Jimenez and Ramos got the goals and assisted each other, with Ramos getting 2 goals, one either side of half-time. Fantastic link-up play from both strikers. Wins kept coming too, because we also played Liverpool at home and once again won 3-0. It seems our rough spell is now over and we keep another clean sheet and score some more beautiful goals. We played 6 league games in April and only conceded 2 goals and dropped only 2 points against Watford. Unfortunately for us, Arsenal and Tottenham seem to have also had good results this month. So our focus turns to the FA Cup at Wembley, and after a boring first half, we broke the deadlock through a naughty chip by Jimenez. Florian Wirtz then found him with 10 minutes left with an unreal ball over the top, which was volleyed home. We got caught napping at the back and gave Man United a glimmer of hope. But that was then crushed when Sudakov scored from kickoff after Willock's shot deflected high into the air. And Willock was a pest from the bench, stealing the ball off Casemiro and finding Jimenez for his hat-trick, which sent us through to face the country's best team right now, Arsenal, in the final. And we actually faced them 3 days before in the Premier League as well, where they could actually lift the championship. We somehow salvaged a draw against Fulham despite playing with 9 men for 45 minutes. And with Arsenal just needing to win to lift the title, they took the lead through Ødegaard. But I didn't want them lifting the trophy at our stadium, and luckily after Kirkju scored an equaliser, Kuol, the youngster, came on and his cross looped up, and another sub, Sven Botman, met it with an incredible header. And we made it 3 soon after when Rabiot scored. But the best part about this was all of our goals came after the 88th minute. FA Cup final time. A trophy Newcastle haven't won since 1955. And it did not start great when a hopeful through ball was poorly defended and Gabby Jesus put Arsenal into the lead. However, from a corner 2 minutes later, we levelled the score 1-1. Second half, and Brooke, Norton, Coffey pulled the ball back into our box and Fabio Vieira put Arsenal back into the lead. Don't ask me why, but for some reason when a long ball was played forward, Sven Botman was there again to score against Arsenal. And in the 88th minute, another near post corner was scored by Gonzalo Inacio. Suck it, comment section. I don't really mean that. I mean, I love you guys, really, but good God, some people get really annoyed when you use something that's integrated into the game and not classed as cheating. Anyway, Newcastle United are FA Cup winners. Imagine if Spurs also snatched the league title from Arsenal on the final day of the season. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because they drew to Everton and Arsenal clinched their first title in 22 years, with us finishing in 3rd place with 85 points, which would have actually won the league by 4 points just 2 seasons ago. Another £258 million was spent this season, albeit with £67 million sold. And there's another £200 million in the budget for the final season of the series. It's our final season here at Newcastle United, and after winning the Carabao Cup, the Europa League and the FA Cup, our eyes are set on the 2 remaining pieces of our Infinity Gauntlet. And after a 3rd place finish with 85 points, we are heading in the right direction. The same can't be said in the Champions League though. Our director of football wasted no time trying to sign Owen Vindel for $63 million, but he rejected the contract. However, he moved straight on to a Brazilian new gen from Cruzeiro. Although he does seem decent for £11 million release clause, he probably won't see much gameplay this season. But hey, Patreon members, if you want to take this on after, I will be posting this right as this episode drops on the Patreon so you can enjoy. He is also determined to get a centre-back as he puts in a bid for Kamara. But he rejects us too.
What?
So he decides to go for Morata from Benfica instead. He's a great defender, I'm just not really sure he's the best on the market, but still, a good pickup. Then he went in huge for Raspadori for £72 million alongside Man City. If he does choose us, I will probably switch to a 3-striker formation simply because we have so many options now. But of course, he chose Man City.
Ooh, how convenient.
So we go into the Community Shield with just Morata debuting, but no defender could stop Saka curling this into the top corner. Souček put one in from the penalty spot, but unfortunately we lost the game when Saliba scored a header at the back post. Our fixtures are tricky at the start of the season too, with both Chelsea and Man United to play in the opening 3 games. We fell behind against Chelsea when Lukaku scored a penalty, but thankfully from a corner, Sudakov turned in the flick on and we drew 1-1. And we followed it with a win and a fantastic game for the neutrals against Fulham. We got a fast start at Old Trafford and Jimenez scored within 2 minutes from Rabiot's through ball. And when the corner was headed back into our possession, we found Souček in space on the edge of the area, 2-0. Sancho did pull one back in the second half, but we left Manchester with all 3 points, gaining 6 more against Brentford and Crystal Palace. And after a very quiet start to the transfer window, on deadline day we secured the signing of Wilfred Ndidi for £50 million. Obviously best suited as a destroyer type of player, I feel like this was the Kamara alternative. Someone who can play in centre-back or centre-mid rather comfortably. Our Champions League fixtures start a lot easier than they end up with a trip to the Bernabeu. But the European campaign didn't start great when we lost 1-0 to Red Bull Salzburg. Thankfully, it was a much better result for us against Fenerbahce. We will just be without Ndidi for the next match as he picked up a straight red card. In the league, however, it was 6 points from 9 with this 1-0 win against Norwich. And another 1-0 win against Leeds. Unfortunately, in October, it was another 2 draws in the league against Spurs and Everton. The latter suffering from a 94th minute equaliser by the Toffees from a direct free kick.
Piss off. Everything's going wrong.
And it doesn't get any better as Man City eliminate us from the Carabao Cup. Did I say it got even worse? Because we were on the receiving end of an absolute tonking by Portuguese giants Porto, who blew us away 3-0 in our 3rd Champions League game, with PSG up next. Before that though, Sudakov rescued a point against Manchester City in the league. And even though we had drawn 5 games from 12, we were still sat in 2nd place, just 2 points behind Liverpool. In the Champions League, we lost to PSG at home, and then we drew away to Marseille 0-0. Putting us in great danger of being eliminated during the league phase with 3 games to go. Thankfully, things picked up in the league against champions Arsenal and we defeated them 2-0, with both being scored by Mexican striker Santiago Jimenez. And we followed that with a 1-0 win against West Ham, before losing for the first time in the Premier League against Leicester. We played a lot of winnable games in December, including this easy 5-0 win in the Champions League. Our only difficult game of the month came at Anfield in the league and we fell behind to Curtis Jones's opener. Thankfully, we put ourselves back into the game with an excellent goal by Jimenez. But Darwin Núñez timed his run perfectly, and when he received the ball, our goalkeeper just couldn't keep the shot from trickling over the line. A 0-0 draw was the only other points dropped this festive period though, as we did win another 4 games, still keeping us in the top 3 and just 3 points off Liverpool. And it's 4 in a row, by the way, for Erling Haaland in the Ballon d'Or. The new year though began with a tricky visit to Villa Park as Viti put us ahead early. It was the young English wonder kid Tezgil whose outrageous shot found the bottom corner. But we didn't let that ruin our attitude and we pushed back, and indeed he eventually put us ahead again, followed by an attacking midfielder Florian Wirtz's goal. In the second half it was Tezgil who scored a second for the Villa, but we won the game 4-2. But this 1-1 against Wolves was the start of where it all went wrong. We drew Liverpool in the 3rd round of the FA Cup and was eliminated immediately. And the same fate loomed over us in the Champions League after losing to Inter Milan. We needed a win at the Bernabeu to stay in the competition, but Valverde made that task even harder. And then while defending a corner, we gave way too much space to Vinicius Jr. Gonzalo Ramos gave us hope when his outrageous strike nestled in the bottom corner. And Jimenez had an 84th minute penalty to equalise.
He's bloody missed it! What a prat! What a...
We finished in 26th and eliminated from the Champions League. And we did suffer defeat against Chelsea, but we got a good win versus Spurs back in the Premier League. Against Man City, I thought the worst when Haaland somehow managed to score this. But we fought right back and scored within 2 minutes through Sudakov. And we flipped the game a whole 180 degrees when our Turkish playmaker scored the winner. And Liverpool, who seem to have also had some dodgy games recently, find themselves just ahead in the league on goal difference. The director of football left it late in the month before he made his moves, including this accepted bid for Zakarian, who then rejected the offered contract. We also made a move for Arsenal striker Gabi Jesus, but he chose Real Madrid over us.
How dare you?
His next target was French centre-back Evan Ndika, and a £44 million bid was accepted from Frankfurt, with this deal actually being completed. He's great, but I do have one question. Do we really need him with Viti, Todibo, Irakovic, Inacio, Danulic, Marato, and Sven Botman? No, we don't. That's 7 centre-backs. Well, it's a good job we also signed Josko Gvardiol then.
I can't believe it!
To be fair, he's probably our best centre-back now, but still, buying an actual right-back will be good as we don't have any. He brought in a new-gen left-winger instead. Idiot! Anyway, with us out of all other competitions, I guess we could just focus on the Premier League, and February brings a clash against top of the league, Liverpool. Against West Ham in the game before that, we left it rather late before finally taking the lead. And then it seemed easy when Souček scored a second from the spot and Sudakov made it 3. Against Liverpool, we seemed so comfortable. Gvardiol robbed Salah of the ball and found Ramos with a very accurate cross. And in the second half, down the left again, the ball was played over for Ramos to nod into the path of Ndidi. Easy 2-0 win, followed by the same result against QPR. And just like that, we take a 3-point advantage with just 9 games left. Liverpool still have Champions League football as well and the EFL Cup final to play. In March, we only had 2 games, starting with this 1-0 win against Leicester. But despite our easy schedule, we still dropped 3 points when Wolves scored in the 91st minute. Liverpool could only bag 4 points themselves, gaining 1 point on us going into April with Arsenal still sniffing around. We then beat Everton 1-0 through Florian Wirtz. Then Gvardiol smashed in a rocket against Arsenal for another 1-0 win. Held to a 1-1 draw at the Amex, however. But Liverpool dropped more points against Brentford. And against Man United, we took just 17 minutes to set Gonzalo Ramos free to score. Eriksen's free kick, however, found Salas in so much space. But in the 85th minute, we scored the scrappiest winner ever, once again through Gonzalo Ramos. An awful goal, but hey, they all count. And with a game extra played, we are now 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League. Luck seems to be on our side too, as the man who never misses from the penalty spot had his penalty saved by Dennis Seaman. And in the 89th minute, we broke down the left and stole all 3 points against Brentford. But Liverpool were too busy rescuing their own 3 points in the Merseyside derby, as they scored 2 goals in injury time to break Evertonian hearts and take the decider onto another week. Unfortunately for Liverpool, we had a rather comfortable game at Carrow Road and found ourselves 2 goals up by half-time through Souček's first and Sudakov with the second. Matija Viti then made it 3 right after half-time, and we popped up with a 4th on the hour mark once again through Sudakov. Liverpool also won 2 games though, meaning the league title goes down to the final game of the season, but with a Champions League final ahead for them as well. But they scored super early when the ball looped up for Salah in the 7th minute at Anfield. However, Norwich from a free kick turned in the rebound for an equaliser just 21 minutes gone. Liverpool need us to lose though, and after 28 minutes we finally have a goal at St James's Park and Ndidi shots to flex off Sudakov for the opener. It stayed that way until half-time, but straight from the off, Sudakov's ball found Ramos, who made no mistake doubling our lead and putting one hand on the trophy. And just 2 minutes later, Gonzalo Ramos does it again, scoring his 2nd of the game and Newcastle's 3rd. Capped off with a 4th and crowning Newcastle United champions of the Premier League, Wilfred Ndidi scores. Hilariously, former Liverpool striker Danny Ings actually scored a 2nd for Norwich and cost Liverpool any final day points. But for the first time in exactly 100 years, Newcastle United are champions of England. And how much did it cost my director of football across 5 seasons? A total of £929 million. Hope you really enjoyed this series as much as I did. Let me know down in the comments what you want to see next. And of course, subscribe because we'll be bringing more challenges just like this in the future. And of course, my dad set that impossible target of 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Please help me get there.